at Mehrabad, I mean in Ahmednagar, we didn't have any transportation to get to Merzad or Mehrabad unless you wanted to wait for a bus. But we found we could get these bikes, and this one guy, you went down this alleyway, a couple of blocks, and there was this guy named Faramji Saikowala, and he had a very upright posture, and he had a black coat and I guess a Parsi cap, and he would tell you just how to look after these bikes that he would rent to you. And then he would kind of give a little sermon about Baba. It was delightful. He was a very thin guy, and he would stand up and he would give you this beautiful sermon, and then you would get your key and take the bike. But that song, "Begin the Day with God," I think was amongst his papers, so he may have copied it from a Christian hymn book or something. But darling, I mean, yeah.
Uh,
Wow,
what
I
were the
love.
words he used to say, this gentleman?
No, I mean he would just kind of give a sermon. Baba is the avatar. He comes every so 100 years. And but just completely erect. And he would just give this in English. It was delightful. And then you'd get your bike, and he'd kind of, no, take care of this bike, and then you bike off, and you keep it for the month or 4 months, however long we were there.
Wow.
Oh, that's just great. I kind of vaguely understood why he was called Psychowella, but that's great. I love these
Yeah,
details.
yeah, because I mean, he rented out the cycles. Yeah.
Tell us more about him. He
No, I mean
obviously,
that was your sole time of being with him, is when you began your pilgrimage for the season, that you would get your bike for the whole time. And we were getting flats, and the bikes were breaking down and everything like that. We'd have to get them repaired. He'd get a little upset. They didn't come back in the same condition that he rented them out in. No. Anybody else? Let's see. Ruth, did you rent one of
After
those bikes?
4 months,
Huh?
I do.
No, I think he was there when I was, Jeff, but I didn't rent.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
so he had met Baba and he just
Oh,
decided
yeah.
to live there and
Yeah, yeah. He must
Yeah,
have
doing
been a,
heaven.
huh?
they need to, we're having a lot of trouble understanding you.
She's been drinking again.
Uh,
Oh, yeah.
There you are.
Yeah, now she's moving.
Oh, shut up, then.
My goodness.
You know, I happen to think of something that um, we'll get Alan on this, but one of the things that I had to deal with in my life with Bob, and I'm sure you all have in one degree or another, and it's more difficult when you're young because my ideals of how I should live for Baba were always kind of outside my reach. So I always kind of felt like I was falling short. I mean, it's like the ego comes in there and, like say patience. We kind of have this ideal of patience, and then there's where I'm at, and so what the ego does, the heart will just move you to the next stage of acquiring or cultivating patience. But the ego puts you way up here, where you can't, you keep falling short. And so then you feel bad that you're just not living up to that ideal. I mean, it's a great trick of the ego to always to take the way how we should live for Baba, and it puts it up as this ideal, but it's too far ahead of what we're actually capable of doing as our next step. Does that make sense? So you're kind of beating yourself up. I mean, I'm older now. I'm not like Alan, where I'm dealing with these things. But that's one of the things that because so many people who have come to the center over the years feel bad that they're not quite living the life that Baba would want them to live. But very often, I think the ideal is the ego just puts it too far out of reach, so that you can never you not only can you never reach it, it you keep failing at trying to reach it. you
So,
know.
Do you remember
Yeah,
Lynn Ott used to say, I don't know if this ties in, but for
yeah,
me in a way it does, that the heart, wait a minute, the heart always arrives. Is that it? But it takes the mind so much longer to catch up.
yeah. I mean,
Is that?
that's a slightly different point, but that's good. I mean, the heart knows long before the mind
Yeah,
figures it out.
yeah. And so then again, the heart runs ahead, and the mind is like just getting an idea, trying to, so it's always this uh, pursuit, or this, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I'm incomplete. I'm incomplete. I'm not whole. I
correct.
haven't quite reached this goal. I gotta. But I found that my intuition would know something a couple of decades before I could catch up with things experientially. You
And
know, you can know to be generous intuitively, but
and
to actually become generous is
and
takes a long time. Because you got to move the whole boat. You
and
know, the
songs,
whole ship.
mind, stupid mind. Why don't you go away and leave me behind?
Yeah, Fred Stankus. Yeah.
Yep.
You get it, Dave.
No, but any of you kind of come up against that, or you? I mean, in my early years, I was wrestling with that a
Well,
lot.
Jeff,
Yeah,
I can say this. You were only wrestling with that in early years. For me, it's just continuing to come with me. But it's, I think it's a recovery time, I mean, you have certain ideals in your mind, and, and things so shape up that you just, sort of go off your moorings in that sense. But I think the moment you realize, which happens rather often, once you realize, that you want to be like this, that recovery time can be a little quicker. Um, I mean, that's what I think happens to me. I mean, even now, I just can't hold myself when things go a little out of control. And but but one of the techniques we both practice at home is to just be silent. I mean, don't talk to each other anymore. And then we recover rather quickly, and then get back to
yeah,
some sort of semblance of normalcy. So I think that's what happens. And I think, yeah, of late, at least I have noticed with myself that there is slight improvement. The failure rate is still high, but
failure rate.
yeah, the rate of failure is as high, but not, it's getting lesser and lesser slowly, but
Yeah, but yeah, my main point was just to to be able to tell just what you're really capable. The next step you can actually conceivably take, not not so far ahead that you always have a cloud of failure hanging over you. You know. But I should ask Alan because you start dealing with all that. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, why do people feel bad about themselves? Very often, They just have ideals that are unrealistic for where they are at the time.
Yeah, there was something you said, Jeff, the other week, or you said Baba said to serve him. He didn't say that he was going to fulfill our like satisfaction or our need for satisfaction. Because I remember, I don't know what it was, but in the middle of the conversation, you kind of just said something along the lines of like, "What are you trying to get satisfied? Are you?" I was like, "Yeah, that's my whole point. I'm trying to feel satisfied all the time, and I can never feel satisfied." And you're like, "Well, did Bob ever say that you're going to feel satisfied when doing, following this road to him?" And that really, I think that really helped my reference point, or I could just see, you know, it's hard to come back to him again and again when the programming is so unbelievably strong. The force is so powerful. It could be a second. It's like amnesia. It could just 1 second, and especially in the morning time, I see that it can slip away from thinking of Baba into a whole another world of stress in a matter of milliseconds.
Yeah, like goal orientation instead of being in the present.
Absolutely.
Future
Yeah.
future goal of whether it's great or small takes center stage. Yeah,
Yes, and then I don't feel, and then I feel, yeah, just very distant from what am I doing here? Then my whole life becomes like that made up goal that I need to do. And if I'm not doing that goal, then I'm not going somewhere, doing something, or being somebody I need to be in that moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They've somehow filled us up in growing up well, not just America, any place, um, that you've got to be productive. Did you live a productive day today? If you didn't, well, then you failed. I mean, that type of, I mean, the mind has a great time in sabotaging our joy. And
But
that,
that's okay, Jeff. That's probably okay because, I mean, we are being productive. Obviously, we are doing something that, we are serving somebody, I mean, the society or whatever. So if we can only do that honestly, I think we are still sort of doing Baba's work because one thing I realized, you cannot always remember Baba basically because when you're doing work, I mean, you're so engrossed in it.
yeah,
And I mean, I like the method of thinking before and after, which actually probably works for me. When I go to work, I know I may not remember him all the time, but then I just do it as a step in. And as I
Yeah.
come out, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but definitely when I get in. And
I like the human scapegoat phrase, I will try versus I will.
yeah, yep,
Oftentimes, I feel like I'm a human doing instead of a human being.
yeah,
It's just hard for me to, unless I take myself away and just go to the beach or something, go to nature. I'm always doing something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I like the idea of remembering Baba before you start.
yeah.
But if I can do that, I am really doing well.
Yeah, there was a beautiful quote recently I read where Baba did say, "Remember before you tackle something, then get absorbed in it and everything, and then remember me afterwards." It's a beautiful quote, and uh, God, I hope I could find it, but it was very well done. I mean, Baba just said it very clearly, just as Prakash said. Yeah, maybe Prakash will find it.
You touched on expectations of self, and I think along with that also goes expectations of others.
Yeah.
we're constantly running into that. And today we kind of had a breakthrough doing that Ann Hogg sessions on the work of Byron Katie.
Yeah.
And it was really good. I just kind of had an aha moment. Um, and it was that if I am getting triggered by this, that, or the other, in effect, I am, or wanting something to be other than the way it is, I am, the expression I used, which she liked a lot, it's like I'm returning Baba's prasad. You know, these are all opportunities for self-annihilation. And, you know, if there's nothing in me to trigger, to be triggered, I'm moving toward freedom, you know, more and more, whether that's criticism of myself or others.
Yeah.
And it was just really an aha moment that I am returning Baba's prasad and separating myself from him by doing so. Because if Baba is in everything and everyone, and Baba is in every situation, then by not accepting it as is, I am separating myself from the whole.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. There was a thing in Baba Talk the other day. I'll see if I can find it. But I think Prakash found something, right?
Yeah, but I think he said, Baba made it even simple. He says, think of me. I believe a man asked him how to remember you. So Baba says, now that you have seen me in this coat, this form, keep my photographs or whatever will remind you of me and help you to continue remembering me. Keep my picture in your house and in your toilet also, so that even there you can remember me all the time. Before you start your day, remember me. But I think I know what you're saying, Jeff. Baba did say that before you start any activity, think of me and after. But I couldn't find it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to find this. There's another quote that you might like. Wow, how could it not be here?
Well, you know, I think something that comes up for me is that when I find myself in this kind of bitter, um, you know, kind of like I feel like I'm a ram or something, and I'm like going against a wall or something. You know, I'm trying to get my way or trying to feel like I'm going somewhere, or I don't know, some relief from my skin feeling like it's on fire all the time. Um, I think what happens is for me, I'm not wanting Baba's will or to be the way it is. For me, there's a resistance to, I don't agree with you because in that moment, there's so much, I'm so separate. It's like I'm having a conversation with Baba as if he's like the mailman or something. Like, I don't agree with you to put that mail here now. I want it at 2:30, not noon. You know, and for me, it just causes a lot of pain and tension, and so surrendering to what is actually happening, to actually remember what he's saying when he says, you know, when you feel happy, think Baba wants me to be happy. When you suffer, think, you know, Baba wants me to suffer, and Baba has placed me in this situation. I mean, that's kind of been my daily go-to is like just even little moments of that throughout the day has helped keep me sane a
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah.
I love
Here's,
the way,
oh,
oh,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was just going to say, I love the way you expressed that, Alan. It was so funny, you know, I mean, just the humor of it. And I just had to chuckle about you saying, you know, I put that mail, not now, come back at 2:30. I don't want it at noon. And I thought, does Baba see us and get a little chuckle out of this, you know,
Yeah, because you
this
don't know what you're going to get
abyss
in the mail. you could be getting a ticket, or you could be getting $1,000. But
There you
you
go.
know, I sometimes I just don't want. I don't know. I feel resistant.
Exactly. Does he get a chuckle at the resistance that we so carefully put up? You know, is it just, does he just look at us and shake his head and just think, oh my goodness, what a creation?
Here's this is kind of related. This is an exchange of Dan Ladinsky and Erich. So Dan writes, once when I was walking with Erich and juggling within, trying to free myself of some strong feelings of dislike for someone due to a very unpleasant encounter with them the day before, Erich says to me, they're walking along, is your heart alive today? And I smiled and chuckled a bit and said, you caught me red-handed and kind of wishing someone was dead. Then Eric said, you know, Danny, no one has ever really said anything or done anything but God. Don't be mad at Baba. So this is Eric again. You know, Danny, no one has ever really said anything or done anything but God. Don't be mad at Baba. What a
Now,
little,
actually, now I remember a quote, Jeff, very
yeah.
beautiful, something on the same lines.
Does
Uh,
he
Bob-
does he mean sorry, Prakash, just
No,
let
go
me
ahead.
clarify. Does he mean that he said Baba is doing the doer of everything, he is
Yeah.
everything to everyone?
Yeah, when you complain, you're really complaining about Baba's handiwork.
Well, he
Baba,
said
don't,
blame me for everything.
yeah, yeah. And, you know, depending on how much you, well, I mean, yeah, Baba said if you're going to blame anybody, blame me.
Yeah.
But
I,
Eric is saying going a step further, don't blame Baba. You know, don't blame anybody for anything except what's happening. So that's
That's
kind of what Eric is
PhD
saying.
PhD level.
Yeah, no, that's postgraduate.
Yeah.
I just recalled partially the quote by Baba, or quote
Yeah,
or something, I don't know. Baba says, remember in the future, if anyone hurts you, it is I who hurt you. If anyone laughs at you, it is I who am
yeah.
laughing at you. If anyone, and things like that. And then
If you
says,
love someone, it is I whom you love.
right. And finally, he says, "How can you shrink from me in those? How can you love me in those whom you love, and shrink from those?" Well, I just never remember what's the
This
book.
this is it. How will you ever be able to experience my infinite presence if you welcome me and those who
Correct. Yeah.
something please you and something.
Shrink from me in those that hurt you, or something like that.
Yeah,
Shrink from me, hate you.
that was Malcolm Schloss asked him. He was having difficulty with the people in the ashram. Malcolm Schloss was in 37, and Baba gave him that reply.
So
Yeah.
to all this, Jeff, at least my reaction would be after, in the sense, I mean, whatever has to happen in that moment, and I won't even remember that Baba has said all this. I mean, everything is out of the window. And I just go through the experience and then realize after that it is a bit not too much to Baba's liking and obviously my liking. And then sort of react and try to repair the damage after.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that takes courage too, trying to
Yes,
after. It takes a lot of courage. I mean, you have to now go and apologize after.
yes.
Yeah, and that temper there was a buddy of mine who had a a short temper, and he would blow up at people, and he asked Eric what to do about this. He says, well, given that you lose your temper and everything, at least see that you apologize for it. So when you're forced to kind of apologize, it's kind of humiliating. You kind of helps you kind of control your outbursts, because then you got to go and apologize to that person.
I loved sharing that with my husband, Larry.
Yeah. Oh, there's Pia. Yeah. Well, I've shared this with you before, but in the latter years when we were looking after Darwin, we would be up there at his house, and there would be a number of us there milling around. But then from time to time, Darwin would go into what I would call a state of absorption in Baba, and he'd get like very quiet and deeply concentrated. And we would kind of quiet down and not make a lot of noise. But at one point, I was sitting in his kitchen with him, and he went into one of those states. And I looked down at Darwin. I said, I made so bold to say, Darwin, what are you doing in there? And he kind of looked up at me with a smile and said, I'm trying to dissolve all standpoints. I'm trying to dissolve all standpoints. All expectations, it's a standpoint that gets into trouble. A standpoint of good, bad, and ugly, a standpoint of spiritual, unspiritual, standpoint of love, not so loving, no love. Those standpoints are what keep us from, they keep us in life and keep us from dissolving into existence. When little kids are, early childhood, they haven't created their standpoints yet of good and bad and right and wrong. That's not very well developed yet. So they kind of live in a very expansive present moment, and then of course they get educated out of it. Like Sri Aurobindo said, education is the slow and methodical strangulation of the soul.
That's a good one.
Wow.
I mean, what? Yeah, I mean, you lose it. If we could, but at the end of our life, we're coming back to that. We're going to come back to early childhood.
How does that work with discernment?
You mean,
What's the distinction between being discerning and being without a standpoint?
I feel if you can get beyond standpoints, love will take you wherever you're to go.
20 hours.
And not only that, love will give you the discernment you need in any situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's like dissolving into oneness, you might say, from me and other, that duality. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Hey, have you got a hafiz for us?
Always. But give me a minute or three.
Okay.
Jeff, I had this conversation with my mom. She texted me maybe
Oh,
at
yeah.
10 o'clock at night, and she said, she's been texting me like, oh, I really love this book, Love Alone Prevails, and she's been really into it. And then I guess she got to a certain part because my mom, I'm starting to learn over the years how much of a devout Catholic my mom is actually, or
Yeah.
I didn't know that, I didn't actually know the ways of, even though I went to a Catholic school, elementary school and everything, and I went like hundreds of times, I never listened. I never actually took in the information that they were telling me because I was just always sitting in there and like, I want some bread. I want that bread, that cracker, or like, I want to taste that grape juice, but I never thought. But anyways, my mom was telling me, like Baba said, she said, hi, babe. Baba said Christ's body was buried in Harvan, India, but that's not what the Bible says. Christ was resurrected, and they never found his body. That's why we celebrate Easter, because 3 days after Jesus' death, his tomb was empty, even though the soldiers were guarding it. Then his disciples and loved one saw his body floating up toward the sky. And so I didn't know what to say, but I just said, Baba, please take this. Please take this.
Yeah.
So all I said was everything Baba said was for the benefit of humanity to remember God and ultimately become one with God, as Baba wanted nothing for himself. Sometimes Baba said things in a way that was meant for those specifically around him at the time to bring about an awakening of the heart and mind. Baba even said, "Do nothing even to please me or the world against the dictates of your own conscience. Unhesitatingly do what you think to be right and proper despite the opposition of the world. Let your mind be firm as a rock that resists strong blasts of wind from all sides." And then I said, to end it, take whatever Baba said that brings love to your heart. He loves you unconditionally. And for some reason, she said, I see. That makes sense. Thank you.
Wow, really?
That made sense to her.
Wow, that's amazing.
I know, because that's the very thing you don't want your mom to read.
Yeah.
You know, you want that to come in later, after they
Yeah.
kind of got established. But a good old, a kind of good, sincere Catholic is, that they'll get a nervous breakdown reading stuff like that.
Yeah, but I just felt a real warm feeling in my
Beautiful.
heart before I sent the text, and
Yeah.
then it just worked out. She was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." For some reason, those words,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it's interesting because Baba said
Yeah.
Kitty had been Saint Teresa of Avila. So
Whoa.
she's reading. She's still staying in the Catholic tradition. She just one
Wow.
lifetime off.
Wow.
I think I told you, I also was raised Catholic, and when I first came to Baba, I had Baba meetings at my apartment, and it was a Friday night, we were having a Baba meeting, and the phone rang, and it was my mother, and I picked up the phone, and I said, "Oh, hold on a minute, Mom," and I went into the bedroom, I put the phone, I didn't hang up, I just set it down, I went into the bedroom, and she said, "What's going on there?" And I said, "Well, we're having a Baba meeting." And she said, "Oh, Ruth Ann, why can't you just love Jesus?" And I said, "Well, Baba has helped me to love Jesus more." And she was paused, and went, "Oh." And then for the rest of her life, whatever I brought from my heart regarding Baba was, it had the stamp of approval somehow for her.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he just helped me to love Jesus more, which he did. I
Yeah.
mean, Baba reinfused the love of every avatar so far for me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying. I'm preaching
Absolutely.
to the choir. I'm gonna shut
Yeah.
up.
No. Yeah. No. I found the same thing, that Jesus suddenly came alive. I wasn't even raised in anything, so
Mm,
Jesus
beautiful.
came alive.
We have a Hafez if you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see what Hafiz has to say about all this.
Is it me who opened the inner eye to see the beloved once again? How can I thank you, O loving facilitator of the efforts of your created beings? O inviter of sorrow, do not wash the dust off your face, for the dust settle on you from the streets of longing is the alchemy for realizing the aim of your heart. Do you think the few drops you bestowed is enough, O Hafez? That you are being charming and coquettish in beloved's presence? If the lover doesn't perform ablutions with the blood of his heart, due to the cheapness of his love, his prayer is not right. Do not flee from the hardships of the path, O heart. The aspirant of truth does not give a thought to the ups and downs. As long as you are in ignorance, do not hold a cup other than for the wine of love. In this insignificant playhouse, do not engage in any game but the game of love. What can I receive from the tattletale breeze when the stately cedar in this garden is not a trustworthy keeper of secrets? Although your beauty and grace is based on a self-sufficient love, I am not the kind to give up this game of love with you. The Venusian singer's song will not have any appeal from the station that Hafez sings his song.
Mm.
The inviter of, I have a note here, inviter of sorrow refers to the advanced and sincere lover of God who welcomes difficulties on the path of love, as he or she knows that they are a great help in achieving the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you tune into the collective, how could you not feel sorrow? You know. Hey, Shraddha has appeared. Dinku is here. Marta, how did your parents take your life with Baba? Is she there? Marta. Oh. She grew up a Catholic. Hey, there's Shraddha. Yeah.
Shraddha's there.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Good to see you guys. Good to see you,
Yeah.
everyone.
The usual crowd.
Yes. How is the center, Jeff? Is the hurricane passed by?
Yeah, it wasn't. It was heading right for Myrtle Beach, actually right in this area, and then it suddenly turned north, about
good.
maybe 25 miles north of here, where it made.
Not much damage then.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah. So we were fortunate again. I mean,
Yeah.
it knocked over one huge couple trees, but otherwise pretty minor.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those trees were ready to go to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Marta, are you there? She's probably eating. Pia, how are you doing? That was a beautiful song you sang. Oh,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah. Ooh. Yeah, we'll have to get Alan. You have to get Alan going there
I
somehow.
was going to say, I was up late.
Yeah. How's things been going, Jeff? I haven't talked to you in a couple days.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, one of my even more just what I feel from the world really makes me say Baba's name inward. It forces me to say Baba's name inwardly for my spare time. It's like if you leave a refrigerator door open for a couple of minutes, the motor starts up. And when the world is in such a place like that, Baba's name starts up in me. I have to do something to counteract the heaviness of that out there. I have to do the corresponding work inside to counteract it. I mean, but that's just my particular thing. Not everybody is so inclined with Baba's name, but I find it is my source of vitality. If I didn't have Baba's name, I'd look like
You look like me.
Yeah, no. But I mean, it's a great source of vitality if if it can get from the head down to the heart, so that it proceeds from the heart. And like Merwan, um, Jesawala said, it's like termite that goes in Baba's name, and it just eats out your interior, so that you're just an empty vessel, and Baba can live in you. So I mean, for me, my spare time, that's my preoccupation, rather than thinking. But
Yeah, I'm not sure how, but when I watch Bal Natu, when I was watching those videos, and after reading Rustam Falahati's book and talking about how Bal had these really very severe panic attacks like every day, all day, but like
mhm,
the way he presented himself was just so. I mean, I felt it from you know I don't know, just a totally different space of time. He's sitting there and he's just like, isn't it wonderful how Baba's, just like lifting up the room, and yet he internally he's like, there's like all this whatever's going on, but it's like he's able to focus on Baba and get out of that stream, even though it's the simultaneous thing. It's the
yeah,
simultaneous. So if you ever had a panic attack, if you can feel that kind of anxiety, I mean, I wake up with that almost every day.
yeah,
Not panic attack, but I mean anxiety. It's
yeah.
hard to
And
focus
that,
on a stream.
and the nice thing about, I mean, I wake up in groggy, and I have to kind of work with Baba's name until I get above the clouds. In an
Yeah,
airplane, when you get above the cloud, there's the sun. Then I can go down in the clouds, so to speak.
right.
But that the anxiety can force you to start generating not just Baba's name, but some presence, some vitality.
You know, I
Have
have
a
to have a dialogue with Baba about the anxiety or about the fog. But
Yeah.
usually it's the train going right out of the station at careening along. I mean, I had a dream the other night that I was on a train going to Russia, but I was hanging on the outside. So that gives you an idea of where my so yeah, I have to do what we talk about in effort and grace and stop in the name of love and
Yeah,
just try to
yeah,
put a lid on it, say, okay, Baba, of course, you saw that train. It just went whizzing by us, in its anxious way. Let's take a minute.
yeah,
And that's all I can do. That's how
yeah,
I'm doing it these days. Yeah.
yeah.
And somebody else brought up that Darwin had said he wouldn't get out of bed until he felt Baba's presence.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Well, imagine, sometimes you'd be in bed all day,
yeah.
just striving for you might not get up that day. So it's,
Yeah.
there's things we can think about, but I'm not to that point where I do that now and again where I'll try to feel Baba's presence before I get up. And
Hmm.
he'll give me like a little drop, like a little
Yeah.
teeny drop, and then I'm like, oh, yay! I can get out of bed.
Well, believe it or not, I think Baba's name is his presence. If you can say Baba's name, he shows up. Just like if I say Ruth, I get your full attention, you know, in the same way. You say Baba's name, he is fully there. I mean, he gets to kind of snuggle up to you. So, I mean, that's one way of secure, at least I find securing his presence. Just keep nailing him down.
Yeah, when I got really really sick right after um, right after we got married, me and Adrian, and I got more sick than I had ever been in my life, and And the one thing that happened was that my whole body was completely um, just just could not. I would just feel it was just yeah. It was like being in a compressor machine where I just was like I just thought I was gonna die. I mean I couldn't breathe. I had pneumonia and I was losing it from both ends and I just was losing weight and I'm already a pretty skinny guy and I just remember looking over at Baba and he had this photo that Adrian brought over so I could look at him and he just said to me, I just kept repeated over and over, only God is real, only God is real, only God is real. And the amount of suffering got to the point where I couldn't even, because I couldn't say the whole sentence, I couldn't say that phrase anymore. Couldn't say only God is real. It was too much, too painful to even say that many words. And so I just started saying Baba, Baba, Baba. And that's where it got to a climactic point where it felt like it wasn't just saying the word, but I really, in one moment, I said from my heart and my mind, I think, I just really reached out and I just said, Baba! And in that moment, it was like, I just felt it leave. I felt it,
Wow.
it was leaving
Yeah.
my body. Like that moment, I truly reached out for him. But it happened only under the circumstance of immense suffering. Otherwise, I would have been like distracted, I think.
Yeah.
Like I am now. Like I can handle my pain, but I'm not in that level of like where I'm zoning in on and really, really desperately trying to say his name and hold on to him. I'm still dancing.
It's like getting used to beer,
Yeah.
the taste. I never did work for me, but
Yeah.
Yeah, but you got used to scotch,
uh,
right?
hey, so that's Marta, huh? Back on the.
Yeah, my sister came by, so I muted. I've been in and out, but I didn't want to miss out on any action here.
Well, let me ask you. We were talking about Ruth was talking. Well, Ruth, and then also Alan was talking about his mother. I mean, they were Catholic.
I heard him. I heard what she wrote to him. I was like, amazing.
Yeah. So how did your parents?
Oh no, not like that. No, my parents had a real hard time in the beginning with Baba. I was always the golden child. I was the oldest, so they wouldn't go against anything that I believed, but they didn't understand it. They weren't happy. But then through the years, when they saw how happy and how peaceful and that my life was, then they were happy. And then they thought, okay, well, this must be okay. And then, of course, as the years went by, I didn't care anymore, so it didn't matter. But they were fine. But in the beginning, of course, it was very, very different. And even when I heard of Baba, I had no Eastern exposure. I was raised in the Catholic Church. And then when I got married when I was 18, I said, okay, that's it. No more church for me. It's too black and white. But I didn't have any exposure to Eastern philosophy at all until I met someone who knew about Mayor Baba. So,
yeah. So you were blasphemy just entered right in,
Well, yes, that's true. That's true. Well, I think the hardest part was, when your child says they're going to India back in those days, God, you might as well say you're going to the moon. I mean, it was pretty devastating. They were scared and nervous for me and all that stuff. But, when you're young, anything goes. Now, Alan. So the thing that your mom said was pretty amazing. I heard that. I can't believe that your mom, of course, your mom's really young, probably. Yeah, she's young. Cool.
Yeah, my mom's like 57.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's about our age.
Yeah, that's our age, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's my age. I don't know what age Jeff is.
47.
That's why you look so good. You're 47. No wonder. Oh, Alan, I was going to ask you, do you live in LA?
No, I live in the Bay Area.
Oh, Oh, because I saw your wife singing once, and it said that she was singing from LA, I thought, but maybe not.
Yeah, well, she's definitely moved around with her concerts and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, like you were saying, Marta, my mom mentioned to me that some of her interest got sparked because she's seen me kind of go on a long roller coaster of seeking for God,
Oh.
and so she's really seen me go through a lot of different pathways, and she just was like, and I really look back on when you were part of the Native American church and you were part of all those ceremonies, you were just very unhappy. I'm sorry to say, but I was like, I thought I was pretty happy, Mom. She's like, no, no, you were pretty unhappy and unstable. And I was like, oh. And then she's like, and then you came to Baba, and you got married, and you got this nice job, and you just seem like, even though you were stressed, you just don't seem the same level of pain or suffering that you used to be in. I'm like, well, you're not living on the inside here. She's like, well, I know, but
It's
he's seen me pretty far off, like
yeah.
pretty far down the. So she just was like, so Baba must be a very good thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, the amazing thing is that what we feel inside privately can be entirely different from what we radiate.
That is so true.
And it's important to know that because
Yeah.
someone can, feel like, oh, they're so depressed and everything, but or unhappy, but they are radiating such warmth, and but they're so distracted by how they're feeling privately that they don't see the larger picture of what they're emanating. I mean, there's that line I've quoted from Rumi where he said, "You're so obsessed with the bad stitching on your sleeve that you overlook the magnificence of your own garment."
Wow.
We get, that thing is out of place. So it's I think it's important to tune into how, I mean, like your mother is probably picking up what you're actually radiating, but you're down in your thinking spot, going through like a hamster going around in the cage, you know. And she gets the love and everything that's she gets the wine and you get the dregs. That's kind of the way it is.
Yeah.
It's amazing how this works. I was just, I was, I was just gonna add to that. It's amazing how that works. We talk about effort and grace, and we have these discussions on various topics. And sometimes I find that, randomly just browsing, I fall upon, something very similar written by, either Mani or said by Erich. Or when I happen to connect with my sister in India, and she's narrating some story which is very related to what we had just probably read from Effort and Grace too. It feels like there is some kind of a collective wave or frequency that keeps going, like the discussions that we have. I find that there is some relation somewhere on the other side of the world picking it
Yeah.
up, and
For real.
that's just
It,
Talk about that. Sorry, Jeff.
yeah.
I woke up this morning with this urge, that unidentifiable urge, as to where the source was. It was to send the Lord Meher online link to my cousin. What? The whole 20 volume of it. I shipped it her way. I don't know what it is. We'll find out.
Yeah, Shraddha, you read that piece from God Speaks in the supplement, which,
yeah.
which where Baba talks about like scientists from all over the world suddenly will discover something around the same time. I mean,
Right.
they're at an inner level. They are focused on the same of developing the same breakthrough. Or artists, pick up things, inspiration on a certain level, and you know, 1,000 poems are written by 1,000 different poets, you know.
Yeah.
It's so we're all kind of tied in beautifully, more than we would think.
Baba
One thing
said, when the
I
hearts
explain.
are one, the mind is one.
Yeah,
So maybe not the scientists so much, but I think the collective right now, focusing so much on Baba in so many places and levels.
yeah.
I think that right now the hearts are one.
You know,
That's amazing.
something that's been going on is like my I have family who like my gen my brain's having a brain fart. My family is Armenian, and after the Armenian genocide, they moved from they were forced out to different places, but mainly in Lebanon. And so there's family, extended family that I have there that are currently injured or were injured from the explosion that happened there. And it's another thing of like, how do I haven't really said anything about it to my mom, but in her regards, she's because of her religious background, she can't really fathom that God would let something like that happen because she grew up in warfare and she watched her friends and family die in front of her, and she suffered a lot of. My whole family did in the Lebanese civil war that was happening in the 80s. So when I try to explain to her things, sometimes I just find myself like I just get quiet. You know, like
Yeah.
Baba's just like that's between me and her. Like I can't explain why horrible things happen and why would God let that happen? And it's almost like she explained something to me, which is what I mean by I didn't realize that's how religion thought or this Catholicism thought about it, but her version, which was that God is not those things. That God is not those things in the world that are dark and heavy, and that it's actually the devil. And that and I'm like, well, if that was the case, then that would mean that God is not in everything, everyone. It doesn't make sense to me. I was like, what do you mean? Like, you mean there's a devil and there's the God, and that means they have the same level of like playing ground? And she's like, well, yeah, that's how it is. I'm like, wait, what? Like, that's
It,
what you like. It just
it's
didn't
a
make
very profound truth that almost can't be conveyed,
yeah, yeah.
you know, until the time is there. I mean, how could God do these things? But, you know, you have to be able to, yeah, it's, you know, it's interesting because,
30.
uh, I mean, I find it's a very compassionate system, but like, suppose I come in and I just murder some people and I don't have any remorse for it. I go into a village and I, you know, brutalize the people and I don't have any remorse for it. So what is Bob is stuck? You know, then he has to make it happen to me so I can get the other side. Not as a punishment for what I did in my last life, but so I know what it really feels like when you do that. So I'm less likely to do it again. There's a compassion behind it. But if I have remorse, to that extent, the karma is mitigated.
Mm.
I might even be forgiven if my remorse is deep enough. But I mean, I mean, Bao used to say, and I mean, this is not something you want to tell your mother, but there, that no one is innocent.
Ah,
You know, we've all we get back what we've done, but if we sometime I'll tell you something about forgiveness that Baba conveyed to me in the tomb, but it takes a little bit of doing. But it, remorse is the main thing, so we don't have to. It breaks the cycle of karma, cause and effect, you know.
But that makes so much sense.
And Adi, Bao, he had several of Bao Kaochuri's trips to the West. He had this theme, about 3 trips running. If you do wrong and you justify it, then there's no remorse. And when there's no remorse, there's no forgiveness on Baba's part. And if there's no forgiveness, there's no change. That was kind of the formula. In other words, if you do wrong and you justify it, then how can you justify it and feel remorse for it? And if you don't feel remorse for it, Baba is stuck. He can't forgive you. And if he can't forgive you, then you just go on with the same old pattern. But that is, it's so hard to, it seems so cruel, the whole system, but it's actually very compassionate. There was one woman that came in '52 to the center and saw Baba here. She was black. Her name was Beryl Williams. And she was quite well educated, smart lady and everything, and she suffered so much discrimination while she in her life. We're talking about the 30s and 40s and into '52 when she met Baba. And she asked Baba, why was I black? And Baba said, because in the past you were very cruel to blacks. So, and it's not a punishment. It's so, you just won't do that again. You know how hurtful and painful it is to feel like you're just a second-class citizen. And that you're not treated with any kind of justice and fairness. So
I just wanted to ask,
yeah,
add one thing
yeah.
about your mom and, God and the devil and the balance. And there is a theory called the theory of Abraxas. And I brought it up about something else recently, but it's in the introduction to a book by Kazantzakis written about the life of Saint Francis. So I don't know if you've ever read it, Alan. I think I still have it somewhere. I'll dig it out just because it's come up so often now in my mind about this theory of Abraxas and this. Somehow I read that book when I first came to Baba and just trying to piece together my internal self and the thoughts and the input and just trying to find some kind of whatever, just taking stuff in. And this helped me a lot when I read this. It was because I think of the way Kazantzakis wrote the book in such amazing love, talking about St. Francis, that the introduction was so superb. So if I dig it out, I'll see if I can still feel that, and I'll let you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. My mom, I think I don't know if I don't know if I referred her to it, but I might have said something along the lines of in the discourses when Baba talks about like what we see on the outside in war and pandemics and all these things like that. It doesn't compare to the kind of suffering that people go through in their own minds every day. And for me, that really stuck because I was like, whoa, like, what? Like, I mean, we're having that kind of level of horrific. It's like all the atrocities you see. It's all just like it's projected, but it's not even at the same level of what's actually going on for all around us. We don't know what people are going through. That helps. I don't know. That just helps me kind of like on different levels with
That's beautiful.
having compassion for other people, especially people around who give me a hard time.
I also want to touch on what you said, your mom, because most religions, Islam, Christianity, has this concept of the devil. And Ahriman, probably Zoroastrian too. It just goes back a ways. And I'm curious, Baba really didn't talk about it other than saying it's the force of Maya. You know, he never really talked about a fallen angel, you know, or the devil or anything like that, which it must be some superstition that has arisen. Is that a word? Arised?
Arisen.
Emerged.
Emerged from you know, probably an avatar's discourse that got misinterpreted down the ages and turned it into the story of the devil. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I mean, if you kind of believe in separation just as an indisputable fact, then you're always going to have good on one side, bad on the other, God on one side, the devil on the other. In other words, you're only going to get over the idea of a conflict between good and evil when you start to get into more of a unified state inwardly, you know. Uh,
Mhm.
but I remember in the meeting place, someone asked uh, Bao if there was any such thing as a devil, and he said yes, the mind,
Mm, yeah,
the mind.
yeah.
It is always trying to sabotage our joy, sabotage uh, our intimacy with others. It's, you know, it'll do it. The mind and the ego will do anything to
Fear. I mean, you know,
bad and yeah,
fear, judgments, stuff like that really separates us and makes the other unknown uh, enemy,
yeah,
Creates the other.
yeah.
creates the other, which is an
Yeah.
enemy.
So well said,
What's that
Mama Bear.
quote about evil?
No, 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 no.
Lesser degree of good.
Jeff?
You know,
Jeff?
Al has his hand up too, just to say.
Just a couple of
Jeff?
things. I
Yes.
remember a quote where Baba says, God alone exists, and it's a mistake to think that he has a rival in the form of a devil. It says, accentuating the forces of good, it's important to realize the life divine, but sometimes evil itself helps to accentuate those forces. One must rise above the duality of good and evil and accept life in its indivisible oneness. I did have a mother story since we were talking about our mothers, and I did want to add on to what an experience I had that Jeff was talking about, happiness and contentment. This was 1975, Berkeley, California. And I was with someone, and I was telling her that I was feeling unhappy about something or other. She had this puzzled look on her face. She says, "What, you?" She says, "I thought you were the happiest person I've ever met." I said, No, I'm just cheerful. I'm not happy." But anyway, I took my mom one time to see Amaji, the hugging saint, you know.
Yeah.
And then later on, I showed her a picture of Monty. I said, "You know who this is?" "I know who that is. That's that Indian saint lady you took me to see." And I said, "Well, not exactly, but you're close." But anyway, I'll show you a picture of Jesus. This is my favorite picture of Jesus here. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
And
Very
yeah,
nice. Oh, that's beautiful.
yeah, and that's my favorite picture. But anyway,
I'll tell you something about that.
one day I had a, huh?
I'll tell you
I
something
had a
about
picture.
that picture. Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you something about it too. But I had
And I'll
that
tell you
picture of
something about it
Jesus.
too.
Okay, we got three. The picture's bringing out a lot of stories. But anyway, my mother says, she says, "Him again," meaning Baba said. I said, "No, that's not Mary Baba. That's Jesus." She says, "Jesus, huh?" She says, "How about the saints? You've forgotten all about the saints, haven't you?" I said, "No, I feel very close to St. Francis." She says, "St. Francis, how about St. Anthony?" So she had to get the last word in.
Yeah.
But I was going to say that this picture, in Sivananda had said that this picture, not that it necessarily looks closely to what Jesus looked like, but it portrays that sense of compassion that Jesus had more so than the other pictures. That's the story I remember.
Mm.
So what is your story about that picture?
Well, Yogananda had a vision of Jesus. Uh, Yogananda had a vision of Jesus, and afterwards, that was the one depiction of Jesus that looked like the Jesus who came to him in a vision. In fact, the Self-Realization Fellowship, yikes, they have that particular photograph of that. It's a painting. It's part of a large painting in Riverside Church in New York, and but they keep that there, because that is what he said looked most like the Jesus who came to him in a vision. So you picked out the good one, Al. You and Yogananda are kind of on the same wavelength there.
You're muted. You're muted, babe.
I was saying that my understanding was that Sivananda said pretty much the same thing about that picture.
Yeah. Yeah, it has the
Jeff, can you?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Jeff, can you speak about? Can you tell us about that? The experience that you had when you went to Baba's tomb and about forgiveness?
I should probably do well. I'll give you a kind of a abbreviated version, because there was one person who was, I would say, quite cruel to me for many years, and and I had come to a certain point where well, two things. One is that Baba says that the whole universe is inside of us. And another thing that I come to is, whatever we come by way of outer experience is a reflection of our interior. And so anyway, this particular guy, after about 40 years, he wouldn't even talk to me. He'd just kind of treat me like I was nothing, And so but after about 40 years, he had to talk to me about something. So I used that opportunity to tell him, how his behavior, his indifference, toward me had affected me. It wasn't just toward me, a great many people. And the person was kind of authoritative and, just really didn't, very impersonal. Anyway, so I decided I'm just going to give him kind of an honest feedback, and when I was talking to him, what was happening is what I was saying was just going through one ear and out the other, wasn't paying any attention and everything. So at a certain point, I just said, I'm going to just talk to his soul. I didn't even know what that meant, but I'm going to talk to his soul. And so I changed the camera angle, so to speak, internally. And I'm looking at him, and I have the feeling I'm looking at a remote planet in my own universe, like way out there somewhere, some distant planet, and at point blank range. If it weren't for this guy, I'd never know that this planet existed, so to speak. I kind of laughed to myself, oh my God. This is somehow, this guy is inside of me. But anyway, so then 3 weeks later, I went to India. I wasn't preoccupied with this because I felt I'd been honest with him. I gave him the feedback about his behavior and everything. And so I went to the tomb. I was there after a few days. I was in the tomb and I was just sitting there. In the afternoon, I would go like during nap time when everybody's taking a nap, and then you can have the tomb, sometimes just a couple of you in there. So I'm in the tomb, and I see the scene of this guy and myself kind of float past me, and Baba flashes this to me, a whole discourse in a millisecond. I knew exactly what he was saying. And this is what, translating in English, this is what Baba said. He said, take my word for it. This is Baba saying, take my word for it 100%. Not in this lifetime, but in the past, you used to be just like him. And you were indifferent to people. If they got hurt, that was their problem. You didn't really care how they felt. You justified your behavior. Then Baba says, this person has been in your life all these years. Has been in your life all these years to bring home, let's see, I got to remember this. This person has been in your life all these years to bring you to the point where you will ask me for forgiveness for the way you had been in the past. This person has been in your life all these years to bring home to you, what was I? God, now it's funny. It's been years. To bring home to you that I'm blanking out, but to bring home to you that to ask me for forgiveness for the way you had been in the past, a forgiveness I would readily give to you. So I realized in an instant that this is a very compassionate system. This guy he is in my life because I didn't ask Baba for forgiveness for when I was behaving like him in the past. And he's there to bring home that message that I have to ask Baba for forgiveness. So I'm in the tomb, and what I did is I got in tune with maybe 40 years of this guy's treatment of me. I felt it deeply. I mean, I didn't just, I felt it. I spent maybe 45 minutes, and then I said, Baba, I made someone feel like this. For years, I made someone feel like this. Please forgive me. That's the first time I had asked for forgiveness for the way I had been in the past. And the interesting thing about it is that when I got back, the person never treated me that way again, because his role was finished. And I wasn't asking. See, normally you'd think he's the guy that should be asking for forgiveness, not me. I'm the victim. But that's why I couldn't see it. The victimizer should be the one asking for forgiveness. Here I'm the victim, but I was a victimizer. And Baba said, take my word for it 100%. Not in this lifetime, but in the past, you were just like him in some other lifetime. And so when I'm driving down the highway and some teenager cuts in front of me and yells at me or something like that, I say, Baba, please forgive me. I was like that. I used to do that, and please forgive me. And I tell you, it really works. I mean, if you had like an alcoholic father, and if you had to say an alcoholic father, and you want to get free of the binding of how that father treated you, that father is there because you treated your son that way in the past. It's very mathematical. And then you ask, Baba, when I was a father, I treated my son like this, and I yelled at him, and I beat him and everything. You have to feel it. You have to feel it deeply, and then say, Baba, please forgive me. You know, and Baba is more than happy to forgive, you know.
Jeff,
Yeah,
I'll take it a step further and thank that person.
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you for coming into my life to teach me, to let me see myself and be free of it, you know? So when anybody does something now, I try to say, thank you, Baba. Thank you for this person.
yeah,
Even though they may be pissing you off or they may stab you in the back or whatever. I
yeah,
still feel that, but I
yeah,
always say thank you to Baba first, you know?
yeah,
Because if we give it to Baba and thank it, I mean, everybody comes to be our teachers, you know?
yeah. Yeah, they're getting us to because a lot of these things that happen to us are things we justified and never asked Baba for forgiveness, and we have an opportunity. Yeah,
Mhm.
but yeah, this guy helped me out immensely,
Mhm.
and there wasn't anything in my life this time that was anything like him. You know, I just wasn't that way, but in the past I was.
And see, now because of him, you're telling all of us. So all of us are now able to do the same thing because of that guy that was in your life treating you bad. So it's a
Yeah,
gift, all of us.
yeah, it was a real,
Tomb experience,
what's that?
a real tomb experience. You were in the
Yeah,
Samadhi, weren't you?
yeah, I was in the tomb, and it was like I say in a millisecond, a whole discourse.
Now,
Yeah,
Jeff, you have taken it to a new level altogether. This is good, actually.
yeah.
Mhm.
I'll have to say repentance prayer more number of times now. Thank
Well,
you.
well, just feel how you've been hurt, and you know from somebody, and then ask Baba for forgiveness for having done that to somebody else. You know, it seems totally back assward. You know, it seems counterintuitive, but it's Baba brought it. So Pia, did that make sense to you?
And it also resolves a lot of issues in my head. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, we just we don't. Yeah, of course it presupposes that we've lived before and we've done some
I have a
nasty
question, Jeff.
things.
Jeff,
Yeah,
I have a question. So
yeah,
now that you mention, one instance comes to my mind. At one point of time, I was at the tomb Samadhi taking a darshan, and I remember that there were quite a few people in the line ahead, and some villagers, and sometimes some older persons come by, some disabled people come by. Volunteers help out, and then volunteers also help uh, the ones inside the samadhi. They help. Sometimes people are disciplined enough to not step on the wooden thing, so they have to kind of tell them and guide them not to step on this, wooden thing to when you step inside the samadhi. And sometimes people are also taking a lot of time, so they have to keep the line moving. So sometimes I understand that this is a very tough job,
yeah,
and it takes a lot of the volunteers, and sometimes it gets them excited too. And I had an experience one time when the volunteer had to yell. They screamed
yeah,
uh, to get the thing in control and in discipline and stuff. And I'm wondering to myself, what is it here that Baba is trying to do? It's right there at Samadhi, and I'm thinking in my head, should this be given as a feedback to volunteers, whoever is driving the volunteers, to treat everyone lovingly, because that's the most important thing that Baba or any of the Mandali members would want to do. But disciplining is one thing. But you also talk about forgiveness and how you get something what you probably have done in the past, and that's why you may have been screaming and yelling or whatever, not
yeah.
nice, and that's why that's what comes out. So in these kind of circumstances, what do you choose? And there's so many things that can happen out of this. Feedback to be given to the volunteers that you have to be loving, or you ask for forgiveness for Baba that, you know, I have been this way. Please forgive me. Or, you know, what's the right thing to do in that?
Well, your outer response is that's a different matter altogether. In other words, this is an inner thing. Now, uh, you know, if you spot it, you got it, so to speak, you know. Whoop, you disappeared somewhere.
Oops,
Oh, there you are.
sorry.
There you are.
Yeah.
But uh, but then what you do outwardly is something you have to consult your heart. You may let it go, or you may give them some loving feedback. It's on a different track. I'm just saying, at least for
Mm.
me, it's on a different track. Uh, I'm, you know, in other words, I still kind of kept a distance from this person
Mm.
who, you know, because they are kind of hurtful, you know. So it,
Mm.
you know, I don't have to. I'm not forgiving him. I'm getting forgiven from Baba.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, what you do, I know I've seen some of those things where they're in there and they're after people for leaning against the mural and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Jeff,
Yeah.
I'll tell you a Samadhi story. It's not my story. But before that, in 75, I was at this place called the Living Love Center for 6 months. And the director was a Baba lover. The founder had written to Adi many times because he used to quote Baba in his books. But he always used to say, you're only going to meet two kinds of people in this world. One is lovers and the others are teachers. And they'll teach you what you need to learn so you can be a lover to all people. But anyway, I saw a good friend of mine tonight. And this goes back 30 or 40 years. He was this guy that he just could not get along with. They were both in India. My friend goes to the Samadhi and he sees the guy that he just cannot get along with. He decided to just not even wait around to go inside the Samadhi, but just left and went back down the hill towards the NPC. And on the way down, he was thinking to himself, you know, this is ridiculous, you know. Here we are, Baba Samadhi, and these ill feelings prevent me from even like waiting around to go inside the Samadhi. He says, maybe I should just take the advice of walking. If I walked a mile in his shoes, you know, maybe I'd have a different point of view. So then my friend went into the into the NPC, and a short while later, this other guy, the guy we're talking about that he couldn't get along with, comes in there and he goes up to him. He says, you know, I think you took my shoes by mistake. So he did walk down in his shoes, literally and figuratively.
Oh, that's great. See you, Prakash.
See you guys. Jai Baba.
Hey,
Yeah.
Baba.
AJ
You
Baba.
know, one thing I'll add to this, these things happen to us all the time. And what I try to do, I'm not always successful at it, you know, someone cuts me off or is very nasty or unpleasant, whatever, I feel the reaction, and I also feel that I don't want to have that reaction. You're dealing with two things at one time.
Yeah.
One of them is whatever feelings come up for you, and your feelings of not wanting those feelings to be there or to interfere have to become stronger, you know? You have to stay poised. And then like Jeff says, how you react to that is a totally different dimension. The important thing is to keep the poise within. I had an example one time. I was making deliveries, and I made the delivery, and this guy was nasty as could be. He was so nasty that I was kind of like dazed. I didn't even respond to him, you know? He just laid all this shit on me. I was just making a delivery. And then what happened was after a couple of minutes, I think subconsciously he was testing me, not consciously. It couldn't have been conscious. But his son had gotten in an accident. He was going through a real tough time. And then he was sharing this with me. But I could tell that if I snapped back at him and said, what the hell are you talking about, you know? He wouldn't have had that freedom to just open up. So
Yeah.
sometimes you give people the freedom when you don't respond right away, and especially when you don't respond negatively. And it gives them the opportunity to see what they're saying or what they're doing. But as soon as you respond, it reinforces that they're justified in acting the way they're acting.
Yeah.
But when you don't react to them, then they can see, they have the opportunity to see, well, why am I bugging this guy? He's not doing anything to me, You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, beautiful.
That happens when you don't react negatively like that. It gives them the opportunity. But as soon as you react like sensibly, like most people would react, it just justifies where they're coming from, their anger, their hatred, or their prejudice, or whatever.
Yeah, you vibrate in the same in unison with their anger, and then it goes nowhere, you know. But these are all this to me is the spiritual life, getting this stuff down to where we don't get bound by our interactions. Kind of come away, without being a little freed up instead of bound. It's an art. What did Baba say? True happiness lies. True happiness begins when one learns the art of right adjustment to others. And right adjustment involves self-forgetfulness and love. But right adjustment is that, a lot of Baba people tell me, they'd be very happy and content if there weren't certain people in their life. But those people are the ones that create growth.
Yeah.
The sand in the oyster.
So I was going to share something. Jay Baba.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Pia.
Oh, go ahead. Finish, Jeff.
No.
Go ahead. Finish, please.
I said everything. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I'll share one time. First of all, I struggle with this every day. But two wonderful experiences. One was there was a person in the Baba community that I used to, oh my God, get so.
Uh-oh, we lost you there.
And hold on.
Go ahead. Yeah.
There goes the dog. I mean, not to.
Yeah. So a person in the Baba community that ...
Okay, so this one time I was just like rage inside. I was so angry, and I was actually surprised how much anger was coming up there, because I thought, I don't get that angry. But this time it was just a boiling inside, and every part of me wanted to pick up and say what I needed. Now, can you hear me?
Yeah,
it's my phone. Yeah,
it's on and off.
Is it on and off? Well, yeah, you can hear me
better now.
Yeah, better. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I decided I'm not going to say anything. And I just took Baba's name, like for 24 hours. I was so upset. I don't know how Baba helped me not react. That night, I went to bed. I had a dream of Baba.
Yeah.
And I was in front of him, when Baba's seated in the chair and people would go by to bow down to his feet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm bowing down to his feet, and I look up at Baba, and it's just light everywhere. And I felt that in this life, I got Baba's darshan that night.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And it was one of the few times that I controlled my tongue and didn't say what I wanted to say. And now this is like, I don't know, 8 years ago now. But I remember it so vividly that I feel it pleased Baba, that letting go pleased him. And
And the interesting thing is that people say, well, I don't feel Baba, and definitely you didn't feel Baba when you were having to hold your tongue.
Oh, no.
But that is what love is. Love
Yeah.
is not what we think it is. That what you did, it was like a real
Mm.
act of love, but you don't get to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It was so hard.
absolute
It was,
frustration.
yes.
So a lot of love
Mm.
is frustration, and yet we think, oh, I'm not feeling any love, but
Yeah.
there Baba even underlined it. That was love,
Yeah.
That's what love is. But go
Yeah.
ahead. You had another story.
So the other story, Merwan Merchant, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
he lives in India. Yes.
Yeah.
He was on tour in America, and he came to our home one day. We had a Baba meeting, and he was sharing the story of when he would get very angry. And I don't know the details now of how he came to this, but his way of dealing with it was to close his eyes, picture Baba, and garland the person he was most upset with, the person who he was angry with.
Yeah.
He was garlanding them as if he was garlanding Baba.
Incredible.
And
Wow.
he shared this with this person that in his life that he was struggling with so much. And that's how he was able to let go of the anger that was coming up. I mean, this was, if I remember it correctly, like he was so enraged, like he wanted to like go and abuse this person. He was like wanting to, fight with them or do something. I don't remember, but this is how he, would just in his mind's eye would just garland him as if he's garlanding Baba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, these are yeah, Baba gives all these like very personalized ways of dealing with, with like anger, the buildup of anger. Wow.
Yeah.
There's this quote by Eckhart Tolle, and he says, "There's nothing in life that gives you a better opportunity to obtain grace than to accept the unacceptable."
Yeah.
And there's a story Baba tells that I remember a lot when I get upset or angry or whatever. Baba had a close disciple who, for some reason, his son lived with his brother. He didn't live with him. And his brother really mistreated this son of his to the point where the son died. And so the father, Baba's Mandali, was just enraged. And Baba tells him to go to his brother and ask and apologize. Ask his brother, who he felt was responsible for his son's death, to forgive him.
Yeah.
You remember that story, Jeff?
Yeah. Baidul. Yeah.
Oh, that was Baidul?
His brother, yeah. It was Baidul's son that he abused.
Yeah, and the son died.
That he died, yeah.
Yeah.
And Baba asked Baidul to ask for forgiveness for having kind of having pressured his brother to look after his son. He had to ask for forgiveness. I mean, just totally incomprehensible.
Yeah.
And that's things like that happen that are almost inscrutable. How,
Jeff?
Yeah.
Marcia, this kind of stuff that, you've been introducing since all this effort and grace and all these talks, this kind of stuff is like really, like almost hard work. It's like, it's work to think of all this now. And then it turns my brain, my thinking mind upside down. I mean, just that story you just told, I mean, I know it was Baba directing, but it turns my thinking upside down to a new place of possibility that I hadn't thought of. But it seems like it's work now. Like before, I think I was just coasting along with Baba, and Baba was so good to me all the time. But now, since you came into the picture with this effort and grace thing, and we're having all these talks in the pandemic, and all of us are connected, you know, all over the world, then it seems like Baba's asking for our effort to be more deliberate towards him, or at least for me anyway. I think you've been doing that your whole life. I haven't. I've just been coasting on Baba's grace. You know, it's like, oh, Baba's so good to me. I love Baba, blah, blah, blah. But now, I mean, it's turning my thinking in a different way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's and it doesn't take away from the the joy at the innermost level. I feel. I mean, I feel if I'm doing what I feel Baba would want me to do,
Mm-hmm.
I feel whole, or I feel like I'm.
Happy.
Yeah, there's a joy in it, even if it's rough and difficult. You know, I mean, if you're climbing Mount Everest, um, you know, an excitement also about climbing the mountain, even though it is totally exhausting and painful and hurtful and everything to climb it, but that enthusiasm counterbalances it all.
That's a good point.
And effort is counterbalanced by a certain internal feeling of well-being.
Yeah, that's true. Now that you mention it.
You know.
Yeah. Because you know you're moving towards Baba, or maybe even trying to please Baba or something.
Yeah, yeah, and it's yeah, it's a great. But you know, in a way too, the situations come up where you're stuck. You have to, you know, uncomfortable situations come up, and then you have to deal with them.
Yeah, I know.
So you don't even have to go out looking for them.
You don't have to what?
You don't have to go out looking for this stuff. It arrives.
It arrives.
With somebody. But I think, you know, as long as things are going smoothly, and that's because you know, if your heart is, if you're coming from a loving place, things do go relatively smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
But then you'll hit some bumps in the road and potholes and everything. And they are, like you say, opportunities to grow in a way that you hadn't been challenged to grow. I mean, like I give an example, if you know, if I've got jealousy in me and I just never really give it to Baba, and I just won't do it, and it's a mild case of jealousy, but but what does he do? He gets me to fall in love with somebody, and I go with that person for a while, and then she falls in love with somebody else, and then bam, you know, that now I have to deal with the jealousy. And I can blame both of them for doing this, but really they've done me a favor. They brought up something that I was not giving to Baba. Now I have to give it to Baba. You know, now it's the life helps us that way to bring out the things that we need to give to Baba to be free.
Well, I'm definitely going to try this out, Jeff, because now that I think about it, I could think of a person in my life that they kind of painted a lot of my early adulthood, and even till now, it affects my sense of safety in the world. So I think I'll practice with, what was it you were saying, like reminding yourself, or not reminding,
Well,
but seeing yourself as having done such a thing to someone else.
but it's more like feel how how it's affected you over the years, so that you really feel it, so that you know how you treated someone in the past.
Yes, yes, yes.
You know, and they say, Baba, I made someone feel this way, and I left them feeling with all this wretched feeling in my heart, you know, or hurt. I was repeatedly hurt. Baba, please forgive me.
I'll have to put that into practice.
Yeah, I mean, I like I say, it's the last thing I was thinking of in the tomb. And when Baba flashed that to me,
Yeah.
you know, it connects some. I mentioned it to somebody, and they said, "Oh, that's like that Hawaiian method of Ho'oponopono."
Yes.
It's the same. It's the uh, same principle. There's a thing called Ho'oponopono. Like there was a guy, I forgot his name, but his friend was running this kind of a jail or kind of a prison and a mental like a prison, and he couldn't get the staff to be inspired to do the work, and the prisoners, the inmates were all unruly and everything, and he asked this one guy to come out of desperation. And this guy who's did this Ho'oponopono, he got the files of all of these people, these inmates, and he was just in a room, and he went through those files, and he asked for forgiveness for having done all these nefarious things.
Wow.
And inside of like a month or two, these people were released. The staff, their whole mood changed and everything, and the whole place cleared out.
And he never saw any of the patients. He
Never
only
saw
had the
any of them.
files.
He never saw any of them. I mean, he might have seen them, but he didn't go
No,
one-on-one with them.
right.
He took all of those things that they had done as having done them himself. And so it's it seems totally counterintuitive, but it's the same principle that Baba flashed to me in the tomb. You know,
It reminds me of like selfishness versus generosity in some regard. It reminds me of like if you give that love, that it's sort of reflected back to you, and if you're selfish about it or you're greedy about like, well, I need to keep this for myself, or then the world just kind of seems like a smaller, more lonely place.
Yeah, and if you get forgiven, it doesn't matter whether that person, whether they change toward you, but they will, but that's not your whole purpose. The purpose is for you to get out of the victimizer uh, duality, that thing.
Yeah.
So that it's like a cart with one wheel. It can't go forward in time.
Well, what if you feel like you can't be forgiven?
What's that?
What if one feels like they cannot be forgiven for their own past in this lifetime, or if they can't?
Yeah, you mean yourself.
Yeah.
Things that you've done.
Forgive yourself.
That's a different thing. But self-compassion is an integral part of getting freed up. There's a beautiful book on self-compassion that's very readable. Gee, I forgot the name of the person, but you can. I think it's called Self-Compassion. It is critical because you have to be able to kind of forgive yourself, because we are a mixture of love and selfishness. So we're going to be doing things that hurt us or hurt others, and we're going to feel bad. It's not like we can just be loving all the time. So what are we going to do when you do something selfish? You have to be able to forgive yourself and get back on your feet again.
Right.
That's what I feel. I mean, a lot of my life, especially my early life with Bob, was getting back on my feet after I'd done some selfish things. Right. Because if I don't get back on my feet, I'm going to be in a bad mood, and I'm going to create further mess for myself. So I had to kind of forgive myself, try to be determined to improve next time, and get going. I used to say that's half of the spiritual life with Baba, was getting back on my feet again. I did a lot of selfish things in my college days. You know, I now when I think of those things and I wind up cringing, when I think of them, I send love to that cringing part of myself. Because as if I just keep cringing every time and embarrassed or shamed every time I see that, I'm just confirming it in my consciousness. I'm, it's getting, it's staining it's continuing to stain my consciousness. I've got to send love to it. And
You
it's
keep
not,
the energy going the same way if you don't change your dialogue.
yeah, yep,
What's that saying? When you know better, you do better.
yeah. And it's not fair for me, you know, with my experience now,
Mm-hmm.
to get on my case
Mm-hmm.
when I was in my college days because, hey, I'm in a different place. That's not fair for me to judge how I was in college. You know, I was in a different state. My mentality was different.
Well, that's kind of that thing that Darwin said about, was it Darwin? That we don't realize how large we are, how wonderful we are, and we go into, self-destruction or self not liking ourselves or something.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
Darwin that said that?
yeah.
What was it? Something like
Well,
that.
he would say high self-esteem without egoism. That was one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And self-efface. Well, yeah. He would say. I mean, I asked him one time, "What is the biggest mistake the Baba
Yeah,
ever?"
that was it. That was it.
You know, and he said they think of themselves as small and they remain small.
Mm-hmm.
Think big. Think outside even the traditional spiritual box.
And
You
I
know.
think that old thinking of whipping ourselves for stuff we did in the past is part of that, keeping ourselves down.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We've got to forgive ourselves and go on. And this is our false self that's doing this. This isn't our real self that's doing it, but we're making it real and condemning ourselves. And I
Yeah,
mean, Al has done a lot of things, but I mean, you know, he's,
yeah.
Yes, but I've forgiven myself.
yeah. I mean, you think that's his house, but that's a jail cell that he's smiling from.
I'm outside. Everyone else is inside. Look, you
Yeah.
guys, look, I can see the moon. Can you see the moon?
Nope.
Well, it's there somewhere.
Your
I'll
fingers.
take my word for it. It's out there.
So anyway, yeah, all this is. I think we're gonna. I think it's valuable that we share all this because sometimes you can feel like you're the only one doing this stuff, dealing with this kind of stuff, and we're all kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, it feels like slippery ice, like running to Baba and then falling and then getting back up, and like sometimes I try to forgive myself for some things, and honestly, it just really feels like I just can't. I just there's just it's like it really feels like I don't know how to explain it. It just I feel no forgiveness. there's no spark of it just won't start up, and I'm like, Baba, please just let me. But then I think, okay, there's still some work to do with whatever this is. It's not ready to be given up.
Yeah, or
You
just as Fred Winterfeld used to say, you just have to overlove it.
know.
Overlove it.
That's a good
Flood
one.
it, flood it with Baba's name.
Yeah. No, that's a good one.
No, I mean,
Over love it.
yeah,
And it's okay. And I think I'm more okay with that being that way. Whereas before, it was quite painful to
yeah,
carry a big backpack of those things. But now I'm like, I really am feeling those things all the time. But I'm also, they're less, they're
yeah,
less boulders on my shoulders and
yeah.
just pain in my
Oh,
pain in my heart.
I mean, Erich, Erich used to say about spiritual progress. He used to say it's very, 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 very gradual. 4 varies.
Wow.
You know, so that's not something Americans like to hear. 4 varies. Very slow. And but Al will get out of that prison, I mean that jail cell one day, and then he can start his new life.
You talking about Alan or Al? What are you talking about?
Al, you.
Hey,
You,
Al.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, wait till.
I gotta tell you, on these
Keeping
chats
you
here,
awake.
a lot of times people put all or Al, and I'm saying, are they saying all or Al? I can't tell the difference.
Yeah. Hey, well, I better. It's 12:30.
Well, I'm gonna say good night too. If you say good night.
Okay, guys. Night. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night. Jai Baba.
Good night. Jai Baba.
Marge. Oh, Marge is there. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, Marge
Thank you.
has been there that whole time. Oh, hi, Marge.
I have. You guys woke me up, and it's wonderful. I wanted to share, but I'll wait another time.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Well, you're always welcome to share.
Yeah.
Nasreen, are you still awake?
Yes, I am. My
Oh,
God,
fantastic. Yeah.
I cannot leave such a wonderful program.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. Yep. See you.
Thank you so much. Really needed this session today.
Thank you.
It's really been very helpful.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, you all have a nice time with Baba until we meet again.
Yes.
Thank you. Jai Baba. Good night.
Meher Baba ki jai.
Avatar Meher Baba.
Meher Baba ki jai.